Welcome to John Carter Stories. I wasn't supposed to be in Seattle that night. The biochemistry symposium at the downtown convention center wrapped up 2 hours earlier than scheduled, and instead of staying at my hotel room like I'd originally planned, I made a spontaneous decision. I'd driven 4 hours from Olympia that morning, and it had been nearly 6 weeks since I'd last seen my son, Nathan, and my grandson, Tyler. What's another hour's drive to spend an evening with the people you love most in this world? Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end. Let me know which city you're listening from in the comments. That way, I can see just how far my story has traveled. I promise you, what I'm about to share will stay with you long after this video ends. When I pulled my old Chevy pickup into Nathan's driveway at 9:15 on that freezing January Friday evening, I expected warmth. I expected light spilling from the windows. Maybe I'd catch a glimpse of Tyler finishing up his homework at the dining room table, or hear the familiar sounds of family life filtering through the walls. The house stood there looking peaceful enough from the outside, a beautiful 4-bedroom ranch-style home nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Holiday decorations still twinkling from the previous week's celebrations. 2 vehicles parked in the driveway, just as they should be. Everything appeared completely normal. Everything looked perfectly fine. But then, something caught my attention that made me pause with my hand on the truck door. There was a faint glow emanating from the attached garage. Not the bright fluorescent overhead lighting that Nathan typically used when he was tinkering with projects, but rather a dim yellowish illumination, like someone had placed a small battery-powered lamp somewhere inside. The side entrance to the garage stood slightly ajar, just enough to let a sliver of light escape into the darkness. And that's when I heard it, a sound that made every single muscle in my body go rigid with alarm. Crying. Quiet, muffled crying, the desperate kind of crying that someone does when they're trying with everything they have not to be heard by anyone else. The kind of crying that speaks of practiced silence and hidden pain. I pushed the door open slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs, not having the faintest idea what I was about to discover on the other side. The garage felt brutally cold, so cold I could see my own breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The concrete floor bore the stains of years of motor oil and automotive work. Various tools hung neatly organized on the walls. Nathan's workbench occupied the far corner, its surface covered in a fine layer of sawdust from some long-abandoned project. And there, pushed into the furthest corner of that cold, unwelcoming space, was a sleeping bag. Not even a decent one, but a thin, cheap sleeping bag that looked like something you'd find in the clearance section of a discount store. Something meant for summer camping, not winter survival. Beside it sat a small battery-powered camping lantern, casting that weak yellow light I'd noticed from outside. A stack of worn library books with frayed, damaged covers lay next to that. On that inadequate sleeping bag, wearing a heavy winter jacket that was clearly too small for his growing frame, a knit cap pulled down over his ears, and fingerless gloves on his hands, sat my 15-year-old grandson, Tyler. His wheelchair was positioned beside him, and his face was buried in those gloved hands, his thin shoulders shaking violently as he sobbed, trying so hard to stay quiet even in his anguish. "Tyler!" My voice came out rough and broken, catching painfully in my throat. His head snapped up instantly, and I watched panic flash across his young face before recognition finally settled in. "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" I crossed that freezing garage in just a few long strides, my knees protesting as I knelt down beside him on that unforgiving concrete floor. Up close, in the dim light of that camping lantern, I could see things that made my heart physically ache in my chest. Dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises someone had painted on his face. His features appeared noticeably thinner than I remembered from just 6 weeks ago. That winter jacket, while warm enough in theory, was obviously several sizes too small, probably because of a growth spurt he'd had recently. The sleeves ended a good 3 inches above his wrists, leaving his forearms exposed to the cold. His hands, even protected by those fingerless gloves, were red, raw, and chapped from prolonged exposure to the freezing temperatures. "What are you doing out in the garage, buddy?" I kept my voice as gentle as possible, even though everything inside me was screaming with rage and heartbreak. I
I live here now." He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was simply commenting on the weather forecast or mentioning what he'd had for lunch. Then he quickly wiped his tear-stained face with his sleeve, embarrassed that I'd caught him crying. "Did Dad know you were coming?" "No, sweetheart. I surprised everyone. The symposium ended early." I looked around that garage again, really seeing it this time, forcing myself to take in every devastating detail. A case of bottled water pushed against one wall, a box of cheap granola bars sitting next to it, a small plastic storage bin that presumably held whatever clothes he owned. Drop a comment right now if you're already feeling angry about this situation. We're just getting started, and I need you to stay with me through this entire journey. "What do you mean you live here, Tyler?" My grandson wouldn't make me meet his eyes. He stared down at his hands, picking at the frayed edges of his fingerless gloves. Jennifer, she needed the house for her projects and things. She said the garage was just temporary, just until they could figure out a better arrangement for everyone." His voice got even quieter, barely above a whisper. "That was 3 months ago, Grandpa." 3 entire months of my precious grandson sleeping on a concrete floor in the middle of a Pacific Northwest winter. 3 months of him being banished out here while I had absolutely no idea, while every week I called and everyone told me everything was just fine. "Tyler, sweetheart, how many bedrooms does this house have?" "4. His voice became almost inaudible. "Brittany has one for her room. Emma has one for her room. Jennifer turned the 4th bedroom into her craft room last fall. She makes wreaths and does scrapbooking and painting and all sorts of stuff. She said she needed dedicated space for her creativity and her projects." I had to take a long, slow breath before I absolutely exploded with fury right then and there. "Where do you eat your dinner, buddy?" "I usually just microwave something for myself. There are frozen dinners in the freezer right here. It's honestly just easier than bothering everyone inside." "Bothering everyone?" I repeated the words slowly, tasting the bitterness of them. "Tyler, where is your father right now, right at this moment?" "He's on a business trip. He left Wednesday morning, won't be back until tomorrow afternoon." Then he paused, then added, "Yes, Grandpa, Jennifer knows I'm out here right now." For the first time since I walked into that garage, Tyler looked up directly and met my eyes, and what I saw in his gaze absolutely shattered something fundamental inside me.
I sat down fully on that freezing concrete floor, not caring one bit that the cold immediately soaked through my pants, not caring about my aging knees or my comfort, or anything except the fact that my grandson, my sweet and gentle grandson who'd already been through so much trauma in his young life, had been living like this, living like he was something less than human, living like he didn't matter. "Tyler, I need you to tell me the absolute truth right now. When was the last time you had a real meal? Not a frozen dinner you heated up by yourself in a microwave, a real, actual meal." He had to think about it. He actually had to sit there and think about when he'd last eaten real food. That alone told me absolutely everything I needed to know about this nightmare situation. "Thanksgiving, I guess, about 6 weeks ago." He picked at a thread on his too small jacket. "Dad insisted I eat with everyone at the table. He really insisted on it." "Insisted?" I said quietly, carefully. "Yeah, Jennifer wasn't happy about it at all. She said it was supposed to be a family holiday and—" He stopped talking then, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "She said I wasn't really family anymore. Not since Dad married her and she brought Brittany and Emma into the house. She said I was from the old life and this is the new life now and I just don't fit into the new life because—" He gestured helplessly at his wheelchair. "Because of this. Because I need too much, because I'm too complicated." Every single word was like a knife being driven directly into my heart. I'd taught high school chemistry for 39 years. I'd seen neglect in my classroom. I'd seen abuse. I filed my fair share of mandatory reports to Child Protective Services over the decades. I'd thought I'd seen it all. But this was my grandson, my own flesh and blood, the child of my child. And I had completely missed it. I'd called every single week and Nathan always said everything was fine, absolutely fine, no problems at all. Tyler always got on the phone and said everything was okay. He was doing good. School was fine. Everything was great. I'd believed them because I'd wanted to believe them, because believing them was easier than confronting the horrible possibility that something was very, very wrong. Tyler, look at me. I waited until he slowly raised his eyes to meet mine. Am I angry at you right now? I don't know. His voice cracked with emotion. Are you? Grandpa, am I a bad person? Is that why they don't want me around anymore? I really try to be quiet. I promise I do. I try so hard not to need anything from anyone. I use the bathroom in the basement, even though it's really hard with the wheelchair, because Jennifer says I take way too long in the upstairs bathroom and it's inconvenient for everyone else. I stay out here so I don't mess up the house or get in anyone's way. But it's still not enough, Grandpa. I'm still just a problem that nobody wants to deal with. That did it. That absolutely shattered the last bit of control I had over my emotions. I pulled my grandson into my arms, wheelchair and all, and held him tight while he cried. Really, truly cried this time, not that muffled, hidden crying from before. His whole body shook with sobs, and I felt his tears soaking through my shirt, warm against my chest. "You are not bad," I said firmly into his hair, holding him even tighter. "You are not a problem. You are my grandson, and you are deeply loved, and none of this, absolutely none of this, is your fault. Do you hear me? None of it." "Then why?" The question came out broken and desperate and full of so much pain. Why would Dad let this happen to me? Why doesn't he want me anymore? What did I do wrong? I didn't have an answer for him, at least not one that would hurt him even more than he was already hurting. So I just held him tighter and said, "I don't know, buddy. I honestly don't know. But I'm here now, and I promise you things are going to change. Right now. Tonight. Everything changes tonight." He pulled back slightly and looked at me with those red, swollen eyes, full of confusion and a tiny spark of hope. What do you mean?" "I mean, pack whatever belongings you have. You're coming home with me, tonight." "But Dad will be so mad at me. Jennifer will be absolutely furious. I can't just leave like this. I can't just—" "Let me worry about your father," I interrupted gently. "Let me worry about Jennifer. You let me handle all of that." I stood up, my knees popping loudly in the cold air, and helped him maneuver back into his wheelchair with practiced movements. "Where are your clothes, sweetheart?" He showed me that plastic storage bin. When I opened it, my heart sank even further. It contained maybe 1 week's worth of clothing, and most of it was visibly dirty. His school uniform, Tyler attended an expensive private academy that Nathan and Jennifer paid for, probably to maintain appearances, was wadded in the bottom corner, coffee stains spreading across the shirt, the collar completely frayed. I grabbed the entire bin without hesitation. "What about my library books?" He gestured anxiously toward the stack of worn paperbacks. "We'll take them. We'll take absolutely everything that's yours. But first, we're getting you out of this freezing garage." If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, leave a heart emoji in the comments. You matter. Your story matters. As I loaded his few meager belongings into my pickup truck, Tyler kept looking back nervously at the house, anxiety written all over his face. "Grandpa, maybe we should wait until Dad gets back home tomorrow. Maybe we should talk to him first before we just leave like this." "We will absolutely talk to him," I assured him while opening the passenger door. "But you are not spending one more night in that garage. Not one more night, Tyler." I helped him transition from his wheelchair to the passenger seat. We'd done this same movement literally thousands of times over the past 3 years, ever since the accident that had taken his mother and left him paralyzed. I folded his wheelchair with familiar efficiency and secured it in the truck bed. Before I could walk around to the driver's side, the front door of the house suddenly opened and Jennifer stood there framed in the porch light. "Jennifer, what on earth are you doing here?" She didn't sound even remotely happy to see me. She never did. "Picking up my grandson." I kept my voice level and controlled, even though everything inside me wanted to scream at her. Picking up my grandson. I kept my voice level and controlled, even though everything inside me wanted to scream at her. He's coming to stay with me for a while. You can't just take him like this. She crossed her arms defensively across her chest. Nathan didn't authorize this. You can't just show up and take him. Nathan isn't here, and from what I understand, he hasn't really been here much at all lately, has he? 3 months, Jennifer. You've had Tyler sleeping in that freezing garage for 3 entire months. It's temporary. She said it with such casual dismissal, like we were discussing a minor scheduling inconvenience rather than child neglect. You're not renovating anything, I said, my voice getting harder. You have a craft room, a whole... As we pulled away from that house, I saw Jennifer standing in the driveway in my rearview mirror, her phone already out and pressed to her ear. Let her call Nathan, let her spin whatever self-serving story she wanted to tell. I had Tyler safe beside me in the truck, and that was the only thing that mattered in this moment. The drive back to Olympia was mostly quiet. Tyler stared out the window into the darkness, occasionally wiping his eyes with his sleeve, lost in thoughts I could only imagine. About halfway there, I pulled off at a late-night diner, one of those wonderful old-school places with worn vinyl booths and endless refills of coffee and waitresses who'd been working there for decades. I ordered Tyler a real meal, a proper meal. Meatloaf with gravy, creamy mashed potatoes, fresh green beans, a garden salad with ranch dressing, and a generous slice of warm apple pie with vanilla ice cream melting over the top. I watched him eat slowly at first, cautiously, like he was afraid someone might suddenly appear and snatch the plate away from him. Then he started eating faster, like his body was suddenly remembering what actual hunger felt like, instead of just the constant background state of deprivation. "When did you last eat today?" I asked gently, already dreading the answer. "This morning. Had a granola bar before school." He took another big bite of meatloaf, chewed, swallowed. "Sometimes I forget to eat entirely. It's honestly easier when I just don't think about being hungry at all." Oh God, my grandson had been rationing granola bars and actually teaching himself to ignore his body's signals for food. "That's not going to happen anymore," I said firmly. "You're going to eat real meals 3 times a day, snacks whenever you want them. You're going to have a warm bed in a properly heated room. You're going to be treated like a human being deserves to be treated." He looked up at me, fork with apple pie halfway to his mouth, those eyes so full of uncertainty. "How long can I stay with you, Grandpa?" "As long as you need to, as long as you want to. This isn't temporary, Tyler." "But Dad's going to make me go back eventually." "We'll see about that." We arrived at my house around midnight. It wasn't anything fancy or impressive, just a small 3-bedroom cottage on a peaceful street near the university where I'd taught chemistry for nearly 4 decades. Since my wife Margaret died 7 years ago, I'd been living there alone, rattling around in rooms that felt too big and too quiet. The guest room was currently full of boxes and old teaching supplies I'd been meaning to sort through for years, but Tyler's room, the one he'd used when he visited as a little boy before the accident, before everything fell apart, I'd kept that room exactly the same. Fresh sheets on the bed, his favorite books still on the shelf, posters of planets and constellations still on the walls. I'd kept it ready, always hoping he'd visit more often. Now I was grateful beyond words that I had. I helped Tyler get settled in. He took a shower, a long, luxurious one, and when he finally emerged, his skin was pink from the heat and steam, his hair damp and clean. I gave him a pair of my old sweatpants and a soft t-shirt, both ridiculously oversized on his thin frame, and he crawled into that warm bed wearing them like they were the finest clothes in the world. "Grandpa?" His voice sounded small in the darkness of the room. I'd been about to leave, about to let him rest, but instead I sat down carefully on the edge of his bed. "Yeah, buddy? What if I have nightmares about being sent back there? Then I'll be right down the hall and you can come get me any time you need to, day or night, anytime. What if Jennifer's right about me? What if I really am too much trouble? What if you eventually get tired of dealing with everything?" "Stop right there." I put my hand gently on his shoulder. "Tyler, listen to me very carefully. You could never, ever be too much trouble for me. You are my grandson. You are family. And real family doesn't give up on each other. Real family doesn't make children sleep in freezing garages. Real family doesn't make you feel like you don't belong in this world." He was quiet for a long moment, and I thought maybe he'd fallen asleep. Then he whispered, "I missed you so much, Grandpa." "I missed you too, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening sooner. But I see it now, and I promise you, I'm going to fix this." I stayed right there beside him until he finally fell asleep, his breathing evening out and deepening, his face relaxing for what felt like the first time all night. Then I went to my own room and called Nathan's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail, which I didn't surprise at all. Jennifer probably already called him, probably already filled his head with her version of tonight's events. "Nathan, this is your father," I said to the voicemail recording. "Tyler is with me. He's safe, he's warm, he's fed, he's sleeping in a real bed, and he is not going back to that garage, not ever. We need to talk tomorrow, face to face. Don't call me back, just come to my house. We'll talk then." I hung up and sat on my bed, suddenly feeling every single one of my 68 years. But I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying Tyler's words over and over.
Am I bad, Grandpa? How long had he been asking himself that devastating question? How many nights had he cried himself to sleep on that concrete floor, trying desperately to understand what he'd possibly done wrong to deserve this treatment? If this story is breaking your heart like it's breaking mine, please share it. Someone else might need to hear this. Someone else might need permission to take action. The next morning, I woke up at 6:30 out of pure habit after decades of early teaching schedules. I made coffee, started breakfast, scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, buttered toast, and waited. Tyler appeared around 8, navigating his wheelchair down the hallway with the practiced ease that came from 3 years of experience. He looked better, more rested, but there was still that bone-deep weariness in his eyes, that look of someone waiting for the next terrible thing to happen. "Morning, buddy. Hungry?" He nodded, and I served him a full plate, watching as he ate, really ate. I could actually see color coming back into his face with each bite. After breakfast, I suggested we go shopping. "Shopping for what?" Tyler asked, confused. "Clothes that actually fit you? School supplies? Whatever you need or want. Grab your jacket. We're going to Target." At Target, I bought Tyler everything I could think of. New jeans in the right size, new shirts, new socks and underwear, new shoes, a proper winter coat that actually fit his growing frame, toiletries, school supplies, books he'd been wanting to read but couldn't afford. I didn't care about the cost. I didn't care that our shopping cart was overflowing. Every single item was a small act of love, a small way of saying, "You matter. You deserve nice things. You are not a burden." Tyler kept trying to talk me out of purchases. "That's way too expensive, Grandpa. I really don't need that. It's too much." Each time, I'd put the item in the cart anyway and say, "Let me decide what's too much, okay?" By the time we returned to my house, it was almost noon. I was helping Tyler put his new clothes away in the dresser when the doorbell rang. I knew exactly who it would be. Nathan stood on my porch looking absolutely haggard. He'd clearly driven straight from his business trip, still wearing his wrinkled suit, tie loosened around his neck, 5 o'clock shadow dark on his face. Behind him, her arms crossed tightly and her face set in hard, angry lines, stood Jennifer. "Dad, we need to talk," Nathan said. "Yes, we certainly do." I stepped back and let them inside, but I deliberately didn't invite them to sit down. We stood in the foyer, uncomfortable and tense, and I could hear Tyler's wheelchair from down the hall. He'd heard them arrive. "You want to explain to me why your son has been sleeping in your garage?" I asked quietly. It's complicated, Dad." "No, Nathan, it's actually very simple.
You let your wife treat your son like he doesn't exist. You let her take away his bedroom and give it to her hobbies and crafts. You let him sleep on freezing concrete in the middle of winter. You let him go hungry. You let him believe he's worthless and unwanted. What part of any of that is complicated? The confrontation that happens next will leave you speechless. Keep watching. I didn't know it was that bad, Dad. Nathan said the words, but his voice lacked any real conviction. He knew. Deep down, he'd known. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, I said, feeling my voice getting harder. You're on the road 4-5 days a week for business. You trusted Jennifer to handle things at home. You trusted her to do what exactly? To treat your disabled son with basic human decency? That's a pretty low bar, Nathan. Don't put this all on me, Jennifer snapped, her voice rising sharply. I have 2 children of my own to worry about. Tyler is incredibly difficult. He requires constant attention, the wheelchair, the endless medical appointments, the special accommodations everywhere we go. It's absolutely exhausting. Brittany and Emma need stability. They need normalcy. And Tyler disrupts absolutely everything. I looked at my son, really looked at him. You're hearing this, right? You're actually hearing your wife call your son a disruption? Nathan's face tightened, but he didn't respond. Jennifer has a valid point, Dad. Tyler does need a tremendous amount of care. It's not easy. He's a child. I cut him off, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. A disabled child who lost his mother, a 15-year-old child who's been through absolute hell, who lost his mother, who uses a wheelchair, who just wants to feel loved and wanted, and you've made him believe he's the problem. I stepped even closer, looking my son directly in the eyes. You raised me better than this, Nathan. Dad, no, you're going to listen to me right now. Tyler is staying with me. He's not going back to that house. He's not going back to that garage. He's not going back to any place where he's treated like he's less than human. You can't just keep him, Jennifer said, her voice taking on a threatening tone. We're his legal guardians. We'll get the police involved if we have to. Please do, I interrupted her. I'm begging you. Please get the police involved. Get Child Protective Services involved. Let them see exactly where Tyler has been living. Let them document the conditions. Let them interview him about how he's been treated these past months. I looked directly at Jennifer. Please, I dare you. The color visibly drained from Jennifer's face. Nathan looked between the two of us, confused. What's CPS? Child Protective Services, I explained, never taking my eyes off Jennifer. Because what's been happening in your house, that's called neglect, Nathan. That's called abuse. And I've been a mandatory reporter for almost 4 decades. I know exactly what it looks like. You're blowing this completely out of proportion, Jennifer said, but her voice wavered noticeably. Am I? Let me paint a picture for both of you. A disabled 15-year-old forced to sleep in an unheated garage for 3 solid months, no proper access to food, surviving on granola bars and frozen dinners, no proper access to hygiene facilities, missing medical appointments, completely isolated from the family, told repeatedly that he doesn't belong, made to believe he's worthless. I paused, letting that sink in. Now you tell me, if you heard that exact story about someone else's child, what would you call it? Nathan looked physically ill, actually sick to his stomach. I didn't realize it was like that. Because you didn't want to realize it. You've been traveling 4-5 days a week, letting Jennifer handle everything at home, not asking any questions because asking questions might mean having to make difficult choices. Well, I'm making the choice for you right now. Tyler stays with me. For how long? Nathan asked quietly. For as long as he needs, maybe permanently. We'll see. You can't just do this, Jennifer insisted, her voice getting shrill. Nathan, tell him he can't just do this. But Nathan was staring at the floor, his face pale and drawn. Maybe it's better this way, for now, until we can figure things out. Figure things out? Jennifer's voice went even higher. You're just going to let him take Tyler after everything I've done, after all the sacrifices I've made? Sacrifices. The word came from behind us. Tyler had wheeled himself down the hallway and now was staring at Jennifer with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Something hard, something that looked almost like strength. What sacrifices exactly? You took my bedroom, you made me sleep in the garage, you told me I didn't belong in the family, you told Brittany and Emma not to talk to me, you made my dad choose between you and me, over and over again, and he chose you, every single time. He chose you. Tyler. No, Dad. Tyler's voice was steady, stronger than I'd heard it in years. Grandpa asked me last night if you'd been a good father since you married Jennifer. You know what? I couldn't answer him. I literally couldn't remember the last time you chose me, the last time you stood up for me, the last time you made me feel like I mattered more than keeping her happy. The silence that followed was absolutely devastating. Nathan looked at his son, really looked at him for maybe the first time in months, and I could see the moment it finally hit him. All of it. Every choice he'd made, every time he'd looked away, every moment he'd chosen peace over protection. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself when no one else would, drop a comment. Your courage matters. I'm sorry, Nathan whispered, his voice breaking. Sorry isn't enough, Tyler said, his voice remarkably steady. Sorry doesn't make up for 3 months in that garage. Sorry doesn't make up for feeling like I didn't matter. Sorry doesn't make up for making me believe I was bad. You're not bad, Nathan said, taking a step toward Tyler. Tyler, I know that now, Tyler interrupted. Grandpa told me. Grandpa showed me. In one single night, he did more for me than you've done in 3 years, Dad. Tyler looked at me, and I saw trust there, relief, safety, everything a child should feel. I want to stay with Grandpa. Nathan's face absolutely crumpled, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But he'd made his choices. He'd built this situation brick by brick, decision by decision. Now he had to face the consequences. We should go, I said quietly. Tyler needs to rest. If you want to see him, Nathan, you can call. We'll arrange visits, but it'll be on Tyler's terms from now on. This is absolutely ridiculous, Jennifer said. We're leaving. Come on, Nathan. But Nathan didn't move. He stood there staring at his son, and I could see him doing calculations in his head, weighing options, deciding what actually mattered more. Go with her if you want, I told him. But you need to understand something, Nathan. This is the moment. This is where you choose, right here, right now. Do you choose your son, or do you choose someone who made your son sleep in a garage? That's not fair, Jennifer protested. You're manipulating him. I'm giving him clarity, I said, keeping my eyes locked on Nathan. I'm showing him what the choice actually is, because it's always been this choice, Nathan. Tyler or Jennifer? Your son's welfare or your comfort? And every single time, you've chosen wrong. Nathan looked at Jennifer, then at Tyler, then back at Jennifer. I could see him struggling, see him desperately wanting to find some middle ground, wanting there to be a way to have both. There is no middle ground here, I said, reading his mind. You can't halfway protect a child. You can't halfway love your son. Either you're all in or you're out. Nathan, let's go, Jennifer said again, more firmly this time. He's trying to tear our family apart, she added. No, Tyler said, quietly but firmly. You already did that, Jennifer. You just made Dad look away while you did it. And that's when Nathan finally broke. I watched it happen. His shoulders sagged, his face fell, and he looked at Jennifer with eyes that were finally seeing clearly. You made him sleep in the garage, he said slowly, like the reality was only just now fully sinking in. My son. You made my disabled son sleep in an unheated garage in the middle of winter. It was temporary and he agreed to it. Jennifer's voice rose defensively. He's 15. Nathan's voice was getting stronger now. He's a child. He doesn't get to agree to sleeping on concrete. How did I miss this? How did I let this happen? Because you were never there, Jennifer snapped. You were always traveling, always working, leaving me to deal with everything. You try managing 2 kids and a disabled stepchild and see how— Don't call him that, Nathan said sharply. He's not a stepchild. Tyler is my son. My son. It was the first time Nathan had heard those words with real conviction in 3 years. I'm done, Jennifer. I'm done with this. Done with what? But she knew. I could see that she knew. With us. With this marriage. With choosing you over him. Nathan looked at Tyler. I can't take back the last 3 years. I can't undo what I let happen, but I can stop it from ever happening again. You're not serious, Jennifer said, but her voice wavered. You're going to throw away our marriage over this. You threw it away when you made my son sleep in a garage, Nathan said. I just didn't see it until now. Jennifer stared at him, then at me, then at Tyler. When she realized none of us were backing down, her face hardened into something cold and calculating. Fine. You'll regret this, all of you. Brittany and Emma are my children. You'll never see them again. And when this divorce is final, Nathan, you'll have nothing. I'll have my son. That's something. That's everything. She left in a fury, slamming the door so hard every window in the house rattled. Nathan stood there in the sudden silence, looking completely lost. What do I do now? He asked, his voice small. What Nathan does next will determine everything. You need to see this final part.
Now? I looked at Tyler, who was watching his father with cautious, wary eyes. Now you prove you actually mean what you just said. You get a lawyer, you file for divorce, you document everything that happened. You make absolutely sure Jennifer can't hurt Tyler ever again. And most importantly, you start showing up. Really showing up. Not just traveling 5 days a week and checking out when you're home. Showing up like a real father. I don't know if Tyler will ever forgive me, Nathan said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. That's not your call to make, Tyler said firmly, but you can start by not asking for forgiveness. Start by earning it instead. Nathan nodded slowly, taking that in. Can I visit while you're staying here with Grandpa? Tyler looked at me and I gave him a small nod. This was entirely his choice to make. Maybe, Tyler said after a long pause, but not yet. I need time, Dad. Okay, Nathan said. Okay. I'll wait, however long it takes. He turned to leave, then paused with his hand on the doorknob. Tyler, I love you. I know I haven't shown it, but I do. And I'm going to do better. I promise I'm going to do so much better. Tyler didn't respond. Nathan left quietly, and I heard his car pull away a few moments later. You okay, buddy? I asked my grandson. I don't know, he said honestly. Is it really over with Jennifer? I think so. Your dad's got a lot to work through, a lot to figure out, but I think he meant what he said. And if he didn't? If he changes his mind? Then you stay here for as long as you want. This is your home now, Tyler, no matter what happens, no matter what. That night, after dinner, after homework, after Tyler had gone to bed, I sat at my kitchen table and made a very important phone call. I'd spent 40 years teaching chemistry, explaining to teenagers how reactions worked, how you could predict outcomes based on initial conditions and known variables. But this wasn't chemistry. This was messier, more complicated, more human. Still, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I called Child Protective Services myself. I gave them a complete, detailed report, where Tyler had been living, the exact conditions, the neglect. I gave them Nathan's address. I gave them permission to interview Tyler. I made absolutely sure there was a paper trail, documentation, proof. Because I'd learned over my decades of teaching that the truth without evidence is just an opinion, and I needed more than opinion. I needed documented fact.
The CPS investigation took 7 weeks. They interviewed Tyler 4 separate times. They interviewed Brittany and Emma separately, without Jennifer present. And Brittany, sweet Brittany, told them everything. How Jennifer had explicitly told them not to be friends with Tyler. How she'd said Tyler was too much drama and too much work. How she'd made jokes about the wheelchair at dinner when Nathan wasn't there. How Emma had learned to make those same cruel jokes. They interviewed Tyler's school counselor, who confirmed that his grades had dropped dramatically over the past 8 months, that he'd missed numerous days, that multiple teachers had noticed he seemed withdrawn, sad, and increasingly isolated. They interviewed his pediatrician, who confirmed that Tyler had missed 5 out of 7 scheduled physical therapy appointments, that his weight had significantly dropped, that he showed clear signs of depression and possible malnutrition. They interviewed Nathan, who by that point had hired a divorce attorney and moved out of the house he'd shared with Jennifer. To his credit, he told them absolutely everything. He didn't try to minimize what had happened, he didn't make excuses. He admitted that he'd failed his son, that he'd been complicit in the neglect, that he'd chosen wrong over and over again. The final CPS report was damning. Substantiated neglect by step-parent, secondary neglect by biological father due to failure to protect. Immediate custody change recommended. They didn't need to remove Tyler. He was already safe with me, but they made it official. Temporary guardianship granted to me pending resolution of the family situation. Jennifer fought it initially. She hired her own lawyer, claimed Tyler had lied about everything, tried to paint herself as the victim. But then, Brittany and Emma's biological father, Jennifer's ex-husband, got a copy of that CPS report. He'd been paying child support faithfully, seeing his daughters every other weekend, staying cordial for their sake. But when he read about how Jennifer had treated Tyler, how she'd isolated him, how she'd created an environment of emotional cruelty and neglect, he immediately filed for full custody of Brittany and Emma. The judge in that case agreed. The same pattern that had harmed Tyler could easily harm them too. Jennifer went from having a house full of children to none. Supervised visitation every other weekend. That was it. The divorce from Nathan was brutal. Jennifer tried to claim half of everything, tried to paint herself as the victim, tried to make Nathan look like the villain for abandoning his family. But that CPS report was part of the court record. The judge had read every single page. When Jennifer's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been overwhelmed and doing her best under difficult circumstances, the judge asked one devastatingly simple question. Did you make a disabled child sleep in an unheated garage for 3 months? She had absolutely no good answer for that. The divorce was finalized 5 months after that night I found Tyler in the garage. Nathan got to keep his pension and retirement accounts. Jennifer got the house and a small settlement. No alimony. Not after what the judge called egregious failures in basic parental responsibility.
Nathan moved to Olympia, found an apartment just 12 minutes from my house, took a new job with a local company that didn't require any travel. He started going to therapy. He started doing the hard work of facing what he'd allowed to happen. And he started showing up. Every single week, he asked if Tyler was ready to see him. For the first 3 months, Tyler said no. Then he said maybe. Then, finally, he said yes. Their first meeting was incredibly awkward. They sat in my living room, Tyler in his wheelchair, Nathan perched nervously on the edge of the couch, like he might need to run at any moment. "I don't know how to fix this," Nathan said quietly. "You can't," Tyler told him honestly. "Not all of it. Some things are broken forever, Dad." "I know, but maybe we can—" "Maybe," Marcus interrupted, then took a deep breath. "Maybe we can build something new. Something better than what we had before." "I'd like that," Nathan said, "if you'll let me try." Tell me in the comments if you've ever had to rebuild a relationship from scratch, and if you've dealt with something similar to Tyler's situation, please share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Your story matters, and someone needs to hear it. That was 9 months ago. Today, Tyler splits his time between my house and Nathan's apartment, 50-50 custody, officially. In reality, he still spends more time with me. Old habits die hard, and he feels safer here. But he's learning to trust Nathan again, slowly, carefully.
like testing ice to see if it'll hold your weight. He's absolutely thriving in school now. His grades are back up to where they were before everything fell apart. He joined the debate team and discovered he absolutely loves arguing. He's even funny about it, telling me that years of being told he was wrong prepared him perfectly for debate competitions. It breaks my heart and makes me laugh at the same time. His physical therapy is consistent now, and while he'll never walk again, his upper body strength has improved so dramatically that he can do things now he couldn't do a year ago. He's made real friends, genuine friends, kids who see Tyler first and the wheelchair second, kids who come over to play video games and argue passionately about movies and act like normal, wonderful teenagers. Last month was his 16th birthday. We had a real party. Me, Nathan, Tyler's new friends from school and debate team, even Brittany asked her father if she could come, and he agreed. She gave Tyler a card she'd made herself, covered in drawings and colors. Inside, in her careful handwriting, it said, "I'm so sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You deserved so much better. You deserve so much better. I'm really glad you got out and that you're safe now." Tyler cried when he read those words. Then he hugged her tight and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for telling the truth." Nathan gave Tyler a gift too, his old baseball glove from high school, worn leather soft with age and use. "I know you can't use it for baseball," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion, "but I wanted you to have it anyway, to remember that I wasn't always, that I used to be better than what I became. I'm trying so hard to be that person again, Tyler." Tyler looked at that glove for a long, quiet moment. Then he said, "I missed you, Dad. The real you. I missed that person so much." "I missed me too," Nathan said honestly. "But I'm back now, and I'm not going anywhere. Not ever again." They cried together, holding each other, and I stepped out of the room to give them privacy. Some moments are sacred. Some healing needs to happen just between the two of them, without an audience. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, after Tyler had gone to bed, I sat on my back porch with a cup of coffee and looked up at the stars scattered across the clear night sky. Margaret would have known exactly what to say. She always did. She would have told me I did the right thing. She would have told me that Tyler was going to be okay. She would have been so proud. And he is okay. He really, truly is. I thought about that night 9 months ago, standing in that freezing garage, seeing my grandson huddled on that terrible sleeping bag, hearing him cry those quiet, hidden tears. I thought about how close we'd come to losing him, not physically, but in all the ways that actually matter. How close he came to believing he was worthless, unwanted, a burden. Sometimes I still wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed at that hotel, if I hadn't decided to make that spontaneous drive, if I hadn't seen that faint light glowing in the garage window, if I hadn't heard him crying. Would Nathan have eventually noticed? Would Tyler have kept suffering in complete silence until something broke irreparably inside him? But I did make that drive. I did see that light. I did find him. And sometimes I think that's really all any of us can do in this world. Show up when it matters. Pay attention to what's right in front of us. Act with courage when action is needed most. I finished my coffee and went inside. Down the hall, I could hear Tyler laughing at something on his phone. A real laugh, the kind that comes from genuine joy, not from politeness or obligation. The kind that means everything is going to be okay. The kind that means he's finally home.